He's a Starfrost and captured some fearsome beings back in Darkwing Blast. Little did he know, he was on the planet Wraitsoth, home of the Kashtira. Hey everyone, this is Tombox, and today I have the pleasure of showcasing to you guys the most hyped theme of Photon Hypernova, Kashtira. Now, I've kept quiet about this archetype for some time now, unless you're at my locals. Like, this is the one deck that I would just never stop talking about. Now, I've been practicing this archetype for the last couple of months in secret, but it is incredibly strong, and this is going to be a major game changer. Now, before I dive into the reveals, if you guys can take a second just to help me out here, hit that like button if you like what you see, and if you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, like reveals such as this one, hit the subscribe button and banish that notification bell face down. Alright, let's get to it. Now, to fully experience this deck at full power, you're going to need a couple of cards from Darkwing Blast, such as Kashtira Fenrir, Kashtira Unicorn, Kashtira Shangri-Era, and Kashtira Birth. These cards lay a solid foundation to its winning strategy, and the cards from Photon Hypernova really just boost the consistency to 11 and dominate the competition. This is a rank 7 aggro stun deck that flourishes under Macrocosmos. In addition to their strong stat line, this deck will be known for locking out your opponent's zones, whether it be the main monster zone or the spell and trap zone. I think this deck, if you get a capable enough hand, you're able to lock out all 5 zones on the very first turn, and that's going to make a very fun game for your opponent to play, especially when they can't even summon a single monster. And the icing on the cake for this deck is it also gets to look at your opponent's extra deck and rip a card out, whether it be from Kashtira Unicorn attacking or getting its effect trigger, or through the number monster Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. Yeah, this is going to change the way people build their extra deck. Now let's get into the reveals, and let's start big. We have Kashtira, a Rise Heart, the new Xyz boss monster, and this one is going to be a secret rare. This Kashtira boss has 4 things to keep in mind. Number 1, essentially you're all under Macrocosmos, so any card going to the graveyard is going to be banished instead. And number 2, whenever something gets banished, it has a mandatory non-once per turn trigger effect, which allows you to target a banished card, doesn't matter if it's face up or face down, and attach it to it as material, so it gets self-refueling for number 3. The quick effect. The quick effect, detach 3 materials, okay, and target a card on the field and banish it face down. And face down banish is the best form of removal because it will not trigger many of the effects of, a monster leaving the field. So that's really, really good. And because you detach the material and it is still on the field, you're detaching to basically banish, and therefore it will trigger number 2 and you get to attach material back. So you're gonna be able to use this effect quite often, more or less once per turn if you're doing it right. And number 4, if you look at the recipe of this card, it looks like it's 3 level 7 materials. That seems a bit difficult, so there is a shortcut way of doing this. If you activated Shangri-Era, whether it be the summon effect or the effect to lock out a zone, you get to just slap this on top of any Kashtira monster as a 1 material Xyz summon, and that is so much easier. And what makes this card so scary is that a single copy of Kashtira Unicorn will lead you there, and that's the basic line of play for this deck. Next reveal, we have Kashtira Rise Heart, an ultra rare. Most of the Kashtira named monster in Photon Hypernova generate free special summons from the hand, and this monster is no different. If you have Rise Heart in your hand, if you control a Kashtira, you get to special summon this card from your hand, which is great because the deck needed additional special summons to really get the combos going into getting into the rank 7s. And this monster may be level 4, but essentially it can change its level and banish 3 cards off of the top of your opponent's deck. And that is great because there's not a lot of ways to do that on the turn 1, and this is the card that provides you with the banish and the triggering of your Shangri-Era. And because Shangri-Era gets triggered, you can now go into a Rise Heart at a discount by only using 1 material. And so this card becomes a very easy search option for Kashtira Fenrir. Next, we have Scareclaw Kashtira. This is a great addition to Scareclaw or Kashtira, carrying both names. Essentially, it has a quick effective special summon from hand, but if you do summon it, you are going to need to banish a Kashtira or Scareclaw card from your graveyard or from your hand. This monster has 2 key effects. Number 1, it can attack in defense mode, and it uses the defense stat as calculation, and 2600 is not a small number. It's big enough to run over Baguska, and if your opponent pivots into Baguska because you use D-Shifter on them, then you get to run over their Baguska, and then just continue your turn in main phase 2. And the second role to fulfill is that any Kashtira or Scareclaw that attack while this monster is on the field, your opponent's monster is negated. It's not even activated effect, and it's not even once per turn. You can, as long as you can keep attacking, you can negate the whole board, which is pretty silly. Especially with Fenrir, which gets to, choose a different target if something gets banished. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. Next monster, Tearlament Kashtira. This is an ultra rare, and similar to Scareclaw Kashtira, you get to special summon this card as a quick effect from your hand, as long as you can banish a Kashtira or Tearlament card from your hand or graveyard. A Tearlament's player will see this card as Havnis 2.0, another quick effect summon that will drop 3 cards from the top of the deck into the graveyard. So just for that alone, it's already really good. But keep in mind, this monster's typing is a psychic, so if anything needs to fuse with it, keep in mind if they need to use Aquas, they are not using this card as the Aqua. So that's for the Tearlament players. As a Kashtira player, you get to use this card to essentially load your graveyard to set up for Birth. Or if you're already under the effects of Rise Heart, then you can either mill your own cards and banish a bunch of them and hopefully get some of those triggers off, or you can get rid of your opponent's resources and get a peek of what your opponent is playing. Now we will move on to the spells and the one trap card. Kashtira Overlap. So this is essentially the quick play spell that boosts a monster's attack by 1500 attack by banishing a 1500 attack 2100 defense monster, a heart monster essentially, from your hand, graveyard, or either side of the field. So that part's kind of cool, but I think the cooler effect is that if this card is banished and you control a Kashtira monster, you turn this card essentially into an effect veiler or an imperm on a monster. So yeah, it's really fun. And the way I would use this would either to start it off with, say, Kashtira Rise Heart, banish as cost to get something negated, change my level, that's cool, and then reattach this card with a Rise Heart, so whenever a Rise Heart detaches, I get to negate a monster effect. So maybe that's the way to kind of really just weave it into part of your combos. Alright, we got 2 juicy spell cards coming up. First of all, we have a secret rare, Kashtira Theosis. This is essentially their version of Emergency Teleport, a spell card that summons a monster straight from the deck. However, there are a couple things to keep in mind. This card does target a Kashtira that you control to compare the attribute, because you have to summon a monster with a different attribute in defense position. So if there's no attribute to compare, you will not be able to summon a monster from the deck. So that is a little bit of a restriction, but don't get me wrong, this is still an incredible card, because that just makes it so that Kashtira Unicorn automatically gets to summon out a free Fenrir, and Fenrir gives you another monster, which is probably Rise Heart. You can see how that line of play goes, and that just leads to a lot of free pluses, if you know what I'm saying here. So yes, this card is incredible, and just to give you even more, if you banish this card basically from anywhere, if this card is banished, you get to add back a Kashtira card that is already banished. Yeah, it could be a spell, it could be a trap, so you can add back, say, a banished copy of Birth, so that now you can play like a Reborn-esque card. It's just got a lot to offer. And another one, we have the field spell, Pressured Planet Wraitsoth. This is going to be a secret, and yes, there is 3 secret rares in this theme. This card does 3 things. Much like the Perloreno to the Tearlaments, this is the Wraitsoth to the Kashtira. You get to add 1 Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. So that's already really good, but also has a popping effect, where if you activated the effect of Shangri-Ira, well, you also get to trigger this card and destroy a card on the field. And the other thing is a bit of a continuous effect. It's an attack booster. So how does it boost? For every different attribute on the field, both you and your opponent, you get to increase your attack and defense by 100. That is huge because these monsters are already really big. Any slight boost will always push them over a certain threshold. And with all 3 effects, that just makes this card just mind-blowingly good. And finally, the last card, the trap card, Kashtira Big Bang. So the activated effect, if you control a Kashtira Xyz monster, you can force both players to banish all monsters they control face down until they only control 1. So it's more or less a board wipe, but it does hit your own stuff. And be careful if you control a token, because tokens cannot be banished face down and you might be forced to keep it. And the other thing to note is the key effect here is when this card is banished. You get to target one of your Kashtira Xyz monster, take one of its monster materials, add it to your hand, and you can choose to special summon it, helping you generate free monsters. This card is going to get banished by cost through Kashtira Rise Heart as a part of the comboing process. Now, I did say that I was going to give you guys a jumpstart on the basics opening combo for Kashtira, so here we go. So starting off with just 1 copy of Kashtira Unicorn. Special summon out Kashtira Unicorn using Unicorn's effect to add Kashtira Theosis. Theosis activated, targeting the Unicorn. Special summon out the Kashtira Fenrir, activate Kashtira Fenrir to add a monster. That's going to be Kashtira Rise Heart. Special summon out the Rise Heart onto the field, overlay the Kashtira Fenrir and the Kashtira Unicorn into Kashtira Shangri-Ira. Now you can activate the effect of Kashtira Rise Heart, banishing the Big Bang for cost, and now your opponent is going to banish the top 3 cards of their deck to the graveyard, and now your Rise Heart is going to be level 7. And that's also going to activate the effect of Shangri-Ira. Shangri-Ira is going to lock out a zone, target one of the zones, and you're also going to chain on top of that the Kashtira Big Bang, targeting the Shangri-Ira, adding back one of the monsters as material to your hand, and special summoning on yugioh. Now you have 2 level 7s. If you have 1 additional monster, you can go into the Mind Hacker if you want to, or instead, if you don't have any other cards, then you can just go straight into a Rise Heart because you've already activated the Shangri-Ira. So that's the 1 card play that leads to all these free cards. And that is all I got for this video, guys. As a final remark, just remember, guys, you have to change the way that you build your extra deck. If you only play a single copy of your key combo piece in your extra deck, because you only need it once, you might have to change it up and double up because of monsters like number 89 or Kashtira Unicorn ripping it straight out of your extra deck, and your opponent will have knowledge of how they play against you, because usually the extra deck is a very big tell of what deck you're playing. But anyways, that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, more stuff on Kashtira, I'm going to give you guys my build. I'm going to give you guys my full breakdown. Yes, and I'll even expose all of its weaknesses in a future video. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.